Emmy nominated choreographer and actor, known for many things, but what we're here to talk about right now is his iconic role as Ricky in the series that changed a lot of our lives, Noah's Ark. Christian Vincent, how are you?
I'm good. Glad to be here, Samson. Thanks for having me.
How do you feel that this show is still touching hearts and minds?
I'll say humbled that anyone that says it's touched them in a positive way, that's humbling. It makes me feel good about being a part of it. It's also surreal because I think coming back to reprise that role so much later, it's like so much has gone on between the time that we first started, and it really makes you reflect on who you are, who the character is, who you were, who the character was. So I'd say surreal and I'd say humbling to come back. And it's fun. That's fun.
So June the 20th, the show is coming to Paramount Plus. It's Daddy Issues. What can we expect?
We can expect to see, I mean, you can expect to see, we have to keep our mouths closed. I mean, it on the internet, it does say a little bit about Noah and Wade's relationship, but you can expect to see all of us are back with some additional guest stars, like which I think is great. It was like I'd go on set some days and this is, it's out there already on the internet, but like Jasmine Guy's on set, like I love Jasmine Guy or grew up watching her. So I think you're in for a lot of the fun that was there before, the humor, the friendship, the camaraderie, and you know, a lot of the same, just we're a little older.
Y'all are still doing great. So, okay, so how have you guys, you, Daryl, Rodney, uh, Jensen, I can see everybody's face.
Greg.
Greg, Doug, how have you guys maintained relationships with each other over the years?
It's different for a lot of us. Some of us, hang out occasionally or more than others, but for sure, I would say over the years, it's like touching base, and especially after doing this, I think coming together. Um, it was really nice, and I think Doug and I had this conversation the other day. It's like it was nice to come back now, um, more mature because we are more mature. And we shared different experiences during the show that we had, what was going on in our lives at that time, what's going on in our lives now. Um, Daryl and I were just talking on the phone last week about things in the past and things going on right now because Daryl's a parent as well. So I think it's nice to in complete transparency, it was when you're younger and you're in this industry, everyone, striving to do their thing and da 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 da. And it feels like you're kind of like on your own island sometimes.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
think this time it was a little bit more for some of us like, oh hey, as grown-ups. Not that we weren't grown-ups, but you relate on a different level. It's more at ease for some of
Yeah.
us in some ways and but all of us have different relationships in different ways with one another. But I would say for me, it was coming together and just being like, it was more at ease, with, life and where you are. And it just glad to come back together and, you see these sets, you're like, oh, wow, this is where this character is right now. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So I think it was fun for us to see that. I think it'd be fun for the fans to see that. But a really good group of people on the show, so it was nice to come together.
So now I'm curious. I got to kind of ask a bit of an acting related question because you talked about maturity
Yeah,
and and the character that you portray, which is Ricky, is a
yeah.
very particular character. So, with maturity, how do you think maturity has played a role both for you portraying Ricky and Ricky's own maturity? How have you seen the two translate?
Wow, that's a kind of a loaded question. But I mean, Ricky initially, I think I've said this in interviews before. Ricky was initially when Patrick told me, because we went and read for a bunch of different roles, and initially I was Noah, and then he called me and said, "You're gonna be Ricky," and I remember my heart dropped because I just thought, "Oh, this is gonna be harder," and um, but it ended up being hard, because I could relate to Noah more at that time.
Mm.
Uh, but in the process of playing Ricky, I learned a lot from Ricky. I'll say that, especially during that time of my life. So I learned a lot from playing that character. And I think some ways some people develop faster than others. I think, I'm not Ricky, so where Ricky is in the movie, you will see. You'll see where he's evolved to, but I will say this, he is still Ricky.
I think I know, but I get your perspective on this. What do you think makes Ricky relatable to so many black gay men?
It's funny that you say that because, there's certain people that would come up to me and they say, I'm you, or I'm you. Now, I'll be honest, and there would be other people, and I would notice this, like people would, they'd be like super friendly with all the other characters, and they were like really standoffish with me because I think they felt they were gonna get, you know, Ricky. Um, what can people relate to about Ricky? I think because he's unabashedly like he doesn't he really doesn't give a shit. How many in our lives, you you really would honestly not if you really didn't care what other people thought, how would you live your life? And I think some people call him, a hoe, some people would call him promiscuous, some people would call him liberated. Whatever you consider that, I think a lot of people like that, that his liberated ways of approaching his love life, you know, and he was not conventional, and that's not for everybody. But I think a lot of people, within the community can relate to that. And let's be honest, a lot of us have had a hoe phase. So um, I think that's what a lot of people can relate to. It's like a lot of, it's like, especially at a certain time, a lot of people haven't have that experience of dating in high school. And then, you live in LA. I moved to LA in, my early 20s. So it's like a lot of people didn't have that experience of, dating and and all the things that you have as a teenager,
Yeah.
as young, most young people have. Many of us didn't have in high school. So when do they do it? It's like when they move away and they go to the big city, and that's where everything just, it goes buck wild. And so I think that's why a lot of people relate to Ricky because Ricky kind of represents that part of people when they finally, after years of being like, no, no, I'm nobody. And then when they let go,
Yeah.
that's that's their Ricky, you know. That's I equate Ricky to that as well.
So going back to when this show came out, did you know that it was going to have the impact that it has had on the community?
No, no. Mm-mm. We really didn't know how many people were seeing it, honestly, because I don't think at the time the network had like the Nielsen ratings. The only way we knew people, occasionally, you know, people would come up to me and say, "Hey, I saw you in your show," or "Hey," but it was, I mean, interesting. Like it was some people were really like quiet about it, like it was a secret, you know. And then some people were just like, "Hey, I really love you on the show." And I'll never forget there was a mother and her two kids. And I was heading to the gym and like, "Hey, you're," and the little boy said, "Ricky," and it shocked the crap out of me because normally it was, adults, you
Right.
know. Normally, and it was normally adults, and this was a mother and her children, and the child knew who my character was. So I think when you tell me or when people come up, I think when you're doing it, you're not cognizant of the effect that it will have on people in in a positive manner. Because, also speaking very transparent, I think we heard so many positives, but at the time too, I heard so many negatives about the show.
What were some of the negatives?
I mean, just the I remember hearing something about it was like pornography or it was, how bad it was. I mean, there's so many things, but um that's not where you put your focus on. But
Right.
I'm only saying like I didn't really realize the impact as much that it had on people until years later. And yeah, I will honestly say, like, I am, for that reason, I'm proud of the fact that I did it. And I give kudos to all of the actors who did do it because we did do it at a time when it was basically the way, many people in the industry said to me, it was like, well, it was basically like career suicide
Right.
doing it, you know? But I really didn't care. I was like, okay, I'm getting an opportunity to act on the show, and whatever will happen next. And so be it. I'm still here.
Let's talk about that
Mhm.
because a lot of folks wrestle with that. We've talked about that. Where
Yeah.
does your courage to not give a damn and contribute to these narratives, especially as gay black men, LGBTQ men of color, where does that courage come from for you?
I think you always, in these bodies, you always have to have it. So, growing up, and this is not always the most popular thing, but just in all honesty, I grew up in Canada. So in any environment that I've been in, I was the one black kid in my grade.
Yeah.
So it was I was already used to being ridiculed from kindergarten all the way through high school. So I think and I say having a family that instilled in me, it was like I don't, um it was like a strength. I don't know, it's from my family, it's from grandparents that I had. Like when my parents talk about how my grandparents, what they had to do to come from the South, live in Michigan, my grandfather's family his brothers were being killed in the South,
Mm,
you know, and you think about the lineage of your family and what my grandparents had to do to have, their children, and what my parents had to do and to raise my brother and I was not, so I had this feeling of like it was a resistance of I'm not gonna let somebody shit on me,
right.
period. So in doing, going into this industry, it's like, yeah, I mean, throughout my entire career, it's like beginning, it was like you can't tell people you're this, you can't, you're a dancer, it's like all these lists of things that are working against me. And at the end of the day, you finally get like, oh, I'm this is what it is. So this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I'm going to be, and this is what I am. So to sh the took the it was an acting opportunity. I wanted to act, did it. It was what I wanted to do. I didn't have an issue with it. Other people had an issue with it. Other people may still have an issue with it, but I did not. excuse me, it's what I felt was right for me. And to this day, it's what was right. It was what I was meant to do, for me. Whether in some situations, maybe, the would have, could have, should have, would have, whatever, or this is what I chose to do, and I'm okay.
Talking about that, we have to talk about representation
No.
because when you live with courage, you give other people courage. And so, with that, why is particularly Black gay representation important?
For I mean, why is it important? Because I feel the media helps shape the way that we see our society.
Yeah,
For me, growing up and in a time watching, I remember finding validation, watching the Cosby Show in a different world, and watching In Living Color. Like growing up during that time, seeing people of color, beautiful, intelligent, creative people of color on TV, it was like it gave me strength. It made me more proud to go to school. It made me see like I want to go there. It made me see my dreams um fuller. So I don't think, and the reality is like we exist. So why should we not be on television? Why should we not be in the media? Because it because it's we're a marginalized group, because we're not as popular, or you know, there's certain things we don't consistently want to see on TV all the time, but we see them.
right.
So I think if if television is, it's like it it's just it should represent what the world is,
Yeah.
and Black, LGBTQ, gay, whatever it exists in the world, we have beautiful stories, complex stories, happy stories, sad stories. That's what makes good, TV and good movies. And, from the standpoint of, you look at the past 20 years and there has been more representation. You look at how it has affected, I teach kids a lot, across, North America, come in contact with thousands of kids, and I watch these kids now and how they unabashedly, for the most part, are themselves. Like what previous generations had hangups about, they don't give a shit, And it's nice to see kids, express themselves creatively, and on that journey to finding out who they ultimately become. So why does representation matters? Because it it changes our society for the better when the representation is truthful and
Mm-hmm.
not just, and I have to say that when it's truthful as opposed to just stereotypical.
Authentic narratives.
Yeah. Yeah.
For many of us, we were kind of devastated after the second season when Logo canceled the show.
Uh,
Um, why do you think that happened?
Being completely honest, I don't know. Um, and people might say, "Oh, he know." I actually don't know. I think it was, all I know is that we were told you're not, the series isn't going to come back. You're going to do a movie. So rather than speculate and say, I think it was, that's what I remember. It was, series not isn't coming back, but you're doing a movie. And
Mm-hmm.
we did Jumping the Broom.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's probably a better question for, I've never asked Patrick what, I don't know.
Noah's Ark gets compared a lot to Queer as Folk.
Yeah.
And, you know, they both had significant impacts on the community.
Yeah.
But while Queer as Folk for many of us, it's a memory. Noah's Ark has still had a sort of staying power. I mean, obviously, because we're here talking about another
Yeah.
installment 20 years later. So, what do you think has given it so much staying power?
The fans,
Yeah,
for sure. Um, the fans, it's that to we want to see ourselves, and some people saw themselves represented. And this is a thing that I think you know, I think a lot of times it's like when you're part of a minority, sometimes it's like monolithic, that you're all supposed to be the same way, you know? I think as, you know, black gay men, it's like you're all supposed to, let's be honest, like the entertainment industry, there's kind of like um the ideal for what
yeah.
is considered black male. So this show kept to that, but then diverged from that. It showed us in many different shapes and colors, and it wasn't monolithic. It wasn't one way, and I think that's what people, resonated with. And some people say, well, you didn't represent me. Well, we can't represent everybody, maybe we didn't get that one, and or we didn't get, you know teal, we got blue on our show, maybe, so I think it's the fans that have given it the staying power. And I will say, obviously, whatever Patrick has been doing over the years to keep the hope alive, he has done it because I don't think if it weren't for him doing something that we would be doing this, we would have done this now. So I think the fans and Patrick and have made. And you know what? I'm not going to discount, like, hey, everybody's been game thus far to come back and and do their part again. And I think that makes a big difference too, because I know, like, when you see reboots of things, and you're like, you want to see all of the same people come
Yeah.
back. When one's missing, you're kind of like, you know. So thus far, everyone's been game and has come back and been professional and done their thing.
Well, we're glad that y'all continue to come back and continue to give us these experiences that show us ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really applaud you for what you're doing, because you're right. I think as a community, we do need to cherish ourselves and one another, because I think, it's easy to do the opposite.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, last question. This show has meant so much to our community. It's affirmed so many lives. I would even argue it has possibly helped bring some families together. As someone who has been a part of something that's so life affirming and not to mention iconic,
Yeah.
what are your words of encouragement or affirmation for Black gay men?
Love yourself first. Yeah, that's a biggie. And I think coming from, especially for many of us, like we come from homes where there's a spiritual base or religious base,
Hmm.
and we often feel um, left out or sidelined. Then I truly believe, um, God, whatever you want, other people, the universe, whatever you believe in, I think loves us all as we are. So I think finding for me, it's finding a spiritual base that you feel valid and true, because that's ultimately, at the end of the day, you just have yourself.
Hmm.
So I think finding something that keeps you at peace, know that whatever created us loves us, that we're valid, that you love yourself. And yeah, and I think what and think that you can do whatever you want to do, like achieve what you want to achieve. I think it starts with a belief, especially for young people. I really do, uh, a lot of what I'm doing now is because as a child, I wanted to do it. And I believe, and some of the things came to fruition and some of the things didn't come to fruition, but it's because I had the dreams and overall it was like learning to like really like yourself, love yourself, and respecting this.
Yes.
Respect this when everybody else will discount us, that we're not important or we're, you know, whatever the things are, is that, you know, we're the kings too. We're the princes too. We're the queens too, whatever you want to be. And so,
That's
I mean,
right.
it may sound silly, but I do think like oftentimes we have this thing based on society that you're not as, and it's like, yes, we are. And I think, and you have made me think it's like in supporting one another. And one of the reasons why I came back to do Noah's Ark, and I'll say during the Rona Chronicles, was I told Patrick, I'm doing this for the people who like the show, for the fans. I wasn't doing it because for financial, it was none of that stuff. It was, I'm doing it for that. And yeah, yeah, I guess that's what I'd have to say.